Let's talk about donors. You've dealt with a lot of very large campaigns, obviously, but, if you're talking about a nonprofit that's growing up, when do they get to the point where they could begin to think about this in terms of the scope of the donors they have, maybe the amount of money they're raising annually from individuals? I'm assuming we're not talking about grants and foundation grants, although I assume you can. I've been involved with Rotary where we were recruiting for a special project, and we had individual donors, but we also got matching money. But let's put that aside for now and just talk about, I'm running a nonprofit. I have some major donors. What am I thinking about in terms of sort of a level of giving that I need to have?
So what you want to think about is, are those donors very loyal to you? Do you have a strong relationship with them? And did they put you as one of their top philanthropic priorities? Because if you've got a donor who's giving, let's say, $100 million every year, very, very high net wealth individual, and you're getting $1 million, you might think, wow, we've got $1 million donor. We've got a 7-figure donor. This person is in our back pocket. We're going to be able to go out and raise $50 million for sure. This person's going to help us. And then we've got a few other donors too that give us 5 figures or 6 figures. And that's sort of a skewed way of thinking, because perhaps that $100 million donor sees you as one of the lowest priorities on her list, right? And so she is maybe giving 25, 50, $10 million to her other priority charities. And then yours is at the lowest. Perhaps there's a nice friendship there. And so the point is to say, although we're talking about big money in that example, it's all relative. I could have made that same example with a donor who gives $10,000. The idea that I'm trying to convey is it's important to know where you stand in the priorities of your major donors. Okay. You don't need to be the top of every one of your donors' priorities, but you do need to have a few very specific few who are your leadership donors who would support you. So it's looking at that pyramid of giving and knowing that you've got to have a small percentage that has very high capacity, high affinity, and you have strong access or relationship to them. So that's the golden triangle that you're looking for. Affinity, access, and ability.
Okay. So
that's important in looking at your list.
Let's say you want, let's ratchet this down a bit.
Okay.
Let's say you want to raise $3 million.
Okay.
Say that's your target. And I'm just pulling that out of the air, listeners. I don't have an experience in mind with that. And say you have never done a capital campaign. If we back this up a little bit, then how much money first should a nonprofit have been raising? And maybe this isn't a criteria at all, but I would think you would look at that if you came in and said, well, you're not even raising this. If you're going to raise $3 million, let's work on your annual campaign or whatever you're doing. Does that make any sense?
I know what you're saying. Yeah, it's important that you have a baseline of funds coming in regularly. And then what we usually say as an adage, but it needs to be judged case by case, is that you can raise 3, maybe 5 times your ordinary operating budget if you want to do a very major, very specific capital campaign, and you have the prospects in your pipeline that have the means to do that.
Now is that based on an operating budget that's all contributions?
Yes, not earned revenue. But
or government revenue, because I'm thinking, I had a, $20+ million nonprofit, but we were only raising $350,000 a year. The rest of it was all government. So we would not be raising 3 to 5 times that at all. So,
right. Okay. So you want to be thinking about what can you ask somebody to do is how you really do the math. So if you've got folks who are giving $100,000 every year, then you could ask them for 300. You could ask them for 500. I also always encouraged pledged giving in capital campaigns, which helps you to stretch what your donor is giving
Right.
But nevertheless, you really want to consider your audience and know that you can't just shoot for a 10x or 20x campaign if you haven't had any relationship or culture of philanthropy that's been cultivated over time with individuals with high net wealth.
Right. So just to kind of recap is you've got to have ongoing relationships. You're going to hopefully target getting 3 to 5 times, but you have to have that core group that's been giving.
With this latest valuable episode, we'd love to thank you for joining us on the Creating Community for Good podcast. If you found today's show valuable, simply visit our website, creatingcommunityforgood.com, to leave a review as well as to get access to additional resources and relevant links from this show. Stay tuned for more episodes.